Hey everyone, it's Zach with Palantir Research. Q2 2023 earnings are set to be released after market close on Monday, August 7th. Expectations have risen much higher over the last few months since Palantir's participation in the AI euphoria regarding expectations, so I wanted to show you the comparisons from their own outlooks released from Q1 earnings for Q2 and the whole year of 2023, and that's in regards to revenue and GAAP profitability, but also show what Wall Street is expecting. Now, I'm not going to go into the effects of the stock price since you still can't predict what will happen if they miss, meet, or exceed their own guidance or Wall Street's expectations, or if their new forward outlook will even guide worse or better than expected, or even if the macro will play a role. So there's a lot of factors here and no one can really know. But what we do have today are those expectations. So here was the outlook that was released on Q1 2023 by Palantir themselves. So the outlook they provided for this upcoming quarterly earnings is $528 to $532 million of revenue with just a statement of GAAP net income. So basically 1 cent or more. While for the full year of 2023, they expect $2.185 billion to $2.235 billion in revenue and just being GAAP profitable each quarter, which of course would be 4 quarters of GAAP profitability and then the whole year. Now for reference, even if they hit $532 million in revenue for Q2, if you compare it to their Q2 2022 earnings report, they had $473 million in revenue. So hitting this would be an abysmal growth rate of 12.5% year over year. Now, if they're sandbagging this or truly saw this outlook, Wall Street definitely as a whole, so this includes the bulls and the bears, are thinking Palantir will hit the high end at around $532 million. But the highest estimate is pretty big still at $551 million. When you look at the growth rate itself, it's only 16.5%, so that's even below that 18%. And on the full year end, Palantir, the outlook, they provided $2.185 billion to $2.235 billion. If they hit the high end of $2.235 billion in revenue for full year 2023, if you compare it to their 2022 earnings report, they had $1.906 billion in revenue. So hitting this would only be 17.3% growth year over year. So it's still better than that specific Q2 quarterly growth, so that means they want to grow more in Q3 and Q4. But overall, it's still low for a growth company in my own opinion and my expectations for Palantir. Now, for the Wall Street side, they are basically in the middle of this estimate at $2.21 billion for the full year, so no one is really putting their neck out when it comes to growth or expectations of Palantir doing much better than their own outlook provided last quarter. Now, for myself personally, I would like to see maintenance of their 18% year-over-year quarterly growth that they had last quarter, but if Palantir is guiding this low, there's definitely some level of expectations of not hitting that or not wanting to risk that by revising guidance before earnings. So it'll be interesting to me if they just fall in line or actually exceed expectations. And for Wall Street, I'm not surprised for them trying to get too far ahead of themselves at the moment before there's any confirmation from earnings of reacceleration of their growth, at least not on the revenue side. For GAAP profitability, I first want to preface this with saying I think the numbers might be mixed up here on the Wall Street side because the current quarter year ago EPS of negative 1 cent is the GAAP net income, which is correct. But for the full year, the value they provided is the adjusted net income of 6 cents. So just remember that. But either way, I'm actually surprised by Wall Street's expectations. So quarterly, there's an expectation of 5 cents per share with the lowest at almost 4 cents per share. So they do expect Palantir to continue dragging down in revenue, but finding ways to cut costs, essentially prop up their GAAP profitability. Last quarter, we did see them achieve this without needing to do a step-up acquisition like they did 2 quarters ago, which was around $40 million there with their first quarter of GAAP profitability. And that's with their Japan arm. So I don't think they're banking on that happening again since it was so recent. And for the full end side of things, for full year 2023, it's very peculiar to me also with a range of 20 to 24 cents a share for their earnings. Like I mentioned, the figure they provided for comparison last year is the adjusted earnings per share. So maybe full year 2023, Wall Street's expectations are that, which helps a little in propping up their estimates and understanding why it's so high, but it's still much higher than I care for as a shareholder in a growth company. I myself don't really care about the GAAP profitability for a growth company in the short term, but at least for S&P inclusion, since we're already so close, if they just eke out 1 cent per share per quarter, that's enough for me. I'd rather them focus on customer counts, revenue growth, and net dollar retention, which still will take time, of course, to see how AIP actually affects this in the long run. As noted, there appears to be a lot of expectations baked into the price today of Palantir, and of course that shows in the volatility of the price today. And I'm not saying it's for no reason at all, considering the possible catalyst coming up later in the year and positioning of the company for Palantir in this whole AI environment. But those are still not backed up by any metrics we have yet disclosed. So hopefully, as an optimist myself, we get some positive change in the upcoming quarter in their business that indicates we are turning a new leaf. And the most leading indicator of this would be customer counts, but we'll have to see. So my revenue expectations are not really going to be that positive, honestly. Like I said, customer growth is really what's important here. And the way that Palantir runs their business, you're really not going to see revenue ramp up. But what are your thoughts though on all these expectations from Palantir themselves and Wall Street? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know below, and I'll see you in the next video.